Good evening, everyone. Terrible violence has been raging for the last month in Israel and Palestine in an unprecedented scope. Death, destruction, and displacement are still ongoing. The end is not yet in sight, and the perspectives for what is called the day after are scarce and dire. Jewish-Palestinian peace feels hopeless than ever before. And yet, hope persists. On the ground, different initiatives insist that peaceful coexistence of Palestinians and Jews is the only acceptable future for the land. And they are looking for ways to achieve this together. My name is Elad Lapidot, and I welcome all of you this evening to the Katholische Akademie in Berlin, to its Berlin Center for Intellectual Diaspora, to hear about these initiatives and what perspectives they offer today. With us here this evening are two representatives of two such organizations, Dr. Rula Hardal from A Land for All, 2 states, 1 homeland, and Dr. Avner Dinur from All Its Citizens. They will present their projects. We also have with us Dr. Himmat Zoubi and Dr. Hagai Dagan, who will respond to the 2 presentations and share their own reflections. I am deeply grateful to all of you for accepting to participate in this conversation in such a difficult time. We agreed together with the panel that we will have 2 rounds. First round, each of the participants will share their thoughts, impressions, feelings about what has been happening since October 7th. Then, in the second round, we will try to discuss the perspectives, the possible, potential, existing initiatives for tomorrow. But first, I want to begin by presenting to you with a little more detail the speakers that we have with us today. Dr. Rula Hardal is a research fellow and lecturer at the Shalom Hartman Institute for Jewish and Israeli Identity in Jerusalem. Holding a PhD from the Leibniz University of Hanover, she was assistant professor of political science at Al-Quds University in East Jerusalem and the Arab American University in Ramallah, as well as visiting lecturer in universities in Germany, Portugal, and Japan. She serves as a board member of Adallah, the Legal Center for the Rights of the Arab Citizens in Israel, and she's the co-CEO of A Land for All, 2 states, 1 homeland. Dr. Avner Dinur is lecturer of Jewish Studies at Sapir College in Israel and at the Bar Ilan University in Israel. He calls himself a secular theologian and is the author of Something to Believe in, Secular Theology, a book that is forthcoming in Hebrew very soon. Avner Dinur is also a co-manager of FAB, Friendship Across Borders, a joint German-Palestinian Palestinian-Israeli initiative, and a founding member of a new political party in Israel, all its citizens, Kol Ezrachia. Himmat Zoubi is an urban sociologist and feminist activist who specializes in the intricate dynamics of cities, settler colonialism, cultural landscapes, resilience, and Palestinian feminist movements. She's currently a fellow in Europe in the Middle East in Europe, at the Forum Transregionale Studien in Berlin, where she's working, among others, on her next book project, Deurbanizing Palestine, Transforming Haifa with Haifa, 1948-1953. And lastly, Hagai Dagan is an Israeli author and scholar. He's the head of the Israeli Culture Program at Sapir College in Israel. Dagan has published books in various genres, nonfiction, novels, and poetry. Among his nonfiction books are Jewish Mythology, 2003, The Other God, 2016, and Jewish Demons, 2019. Among his novels are Demons on Agrippa Street, 2012, Nightingale, 2020, and the last recent one, Call of the North, 2023. Thank you again, all of you, for being with us. And with that, I will begin our first round, and I will invite our speakers one after the other. Maybe, Avner, you want to start sharing your thoughts about the now that is defined by October 7th.
Good evening. I live in Sderot. It's a town close to the Gaza, the border between Gaza and Israel. The town that is mostly affected by rockets for the last 20 years. And I live in a community that is called an urban kibbutz. And in our community, we went to a bike ride, about 40 people, on the 5th of October. And I want to begin what I want to say here about from this experience. In this bike ride, we stopped at a certain point and met a photographer. And he was asking us to greet the people of Israel for the holiday. There was a holiday. And we were greeting the people of Israel with this photographer. I happen to know the wife of this photographer. She works with me in the college. Hagai also knows her. 2 days after, I got the message that this photographer and his wife, Yasmin, was murdered with two of their daughters. And luckily, the young boy, who is 12 years old, was saved because he went for a morning jogging. In that bike ride, my son, who is also 13, broke his leg, fortunately. He fortunately broke his leg because he broke his leg 1 kilometer from the place where this party, Nova party, where all the people, a few hundred of people were murdered on that day. And I'm saying that we were lucky to break the leg, because then we had to go to the hospital and we were saved. One day afterwards, on the 6:30 in the morning, we woke up for a huge amount of rockets, one after the other. And then we were, for 30 hours, stuck in the safe room of the house, very terrified from what was going on. We didn't know how much we should have been terrified, because a few hundred meters from there, people were murdered. And luckily, in our neighborhood, no one got shot. Afterwards, in the last 3 months, I'm a refugee. I cannot go back to my home. I know that the home is fine. Nothing happened to it, but at the moment I cannot live there. And since I teach in different places, I was telling some of the students in these talks that I am a refugee, and me and another 2 million people are refugees now because of this war. And these students were Israeli students, young students, 18-year-olds, and they were saying, hey, you're wrong. You're absolutely wrong. There's only 300,000 people that are refugees that cannot go back to their homes. And I was telling them, no, there are about 2 million who are refugees. And they were arguing with me for 15 minutes, and I was very shocked to see that Israeli students cannot understand that refugees are in two sides of the border, and of course there's much more refugees on the Palestinian side and than on the Israeli side. I don't really expect them to understand to that amount what's going on, because the things that the Israeli media is showing to the Israeli people is sometimes very one-sided and doesn't see a fuller picture of what's going on. And I think for tonight, for this event, I would like to start with some thoughts about what's going on. I don't have much time, beginning with the personal experience, and I can't say that this. I mean, what I was trying to convey here is the difference between how we saw our lives before the 7th of October and afterwards, and the difference is just huge. Of course, for me personally, living in Sderot and going through this experience, being not able to go back to my home, but I think the whole society of Israel and the whole society of the Palestinians, and of course all the Palestinians in Gaza, are now severe post-traumatic or ongoing traumatic experience, and they see the political situation this way. And I want to put the point of this difference with the fence. What happened in the 7th of October is that the fence between Gaza and Israel was broken. And looking at the fence, for seeing it from the Hamas, from the side of Hamas, and seeing it from the side of Israel can help us, I think, look at things as some way that is maybe more complex, but also revealing or opening the eyes in a way. So a few thoughts about the fence, and then I'll move the microphone to you, Rula. Two thoughts. One is, I'm sure many of us, or of course I did, thought, why did Hamas do it? Why did Hamas, didn't they know that they are going to lose their administration, the way they govern, the ability to govern Gaza? Of course they knew that. Why did they do it? And thinking about it, and there's quite a lot of scholarship about that in the last few months. It seems that Hamas really wanted to lose their control. They wanted it. And they wanted to lose their control probably because they don't want to control the people of Gaza. And that's not their the motive. That's not their the reason that this organization exists. This organization exists for the liberation of Palestine from the occupation. And the fence is the occupation, which is very strange, because the Israeli left usually believes that the way to get out of the occupation is to build a fence, to build a big fence, and say the Palestinians on that side, the Palestinian state, and on this side, the Israeli state. So is the fence the liberation from the occupation, or is the fence the occupation? And the thought that I want to share with you today, and to end up with it, is that, or to end my part here, is that Israel really wants the fence and then wants to demolish the fence and then to build it again and demolish it again. If in 1948, the fence was really needed. If there was no fence, there was no Israel. And then in 1967, Israel is the one who demolished this fence and said, okay, the whole land is ours. And then in the 2000s, it's built again, the fence. And then in 2024 or 23, it demolished the fence with the help of Hamas. So what is going on here? Isn't it that that this constructing the fence and demolishing, constructing and demolishing, I know it's not it's in the big run, Isn't it this use of the fence by Israel, really saying that this is the way to control the whole land from sea to the river? Isn't the use of both the construction and the demolishing again and again used in this way? And that's a thought that maybe can also bring us to some ideas about where we're going to, or what kind of political arrangement could be achieved after what happened. But that's for the next round, I guess. Thank you.
Jeff, thank you very much. Good evening. And Avner, if I understood you well, I think we found something where we don't agree, because we were talking today where we don't agree. We know each other since a couple of years, and we share also. We participate since 3-4 years in one research group at Van Leer Institute in Jerusalem, and I think I don't agree with you that Hamas don't want the control on Gaza Strip and in the Palestinian occupied territories in general. I think the opposite, and one of the reasons why Hamas did what they've done October 7th was because of internal political interests of Hamas inside the political Palestinian scene, regardless of Israel. But of course, the Israeli policies toward the Palestinian people during the last 20 years, maybe 25 years, and especially the last government. But I will come to that later on. Actually, I don't like speaking about feelings, so I will say something a little bit about my feelings in October 7th, and move more to focus on analyzing very, very briefly the whole context of October 7th and later on today. I knew from the beginning of the events of October 7th that it's something new that we don't know, that I didn't see, witnessed in my life in Israel, Palestine, during the last, I don't know, 40 years. I'm not going to say exactly how much. I knew that it's going to to be difficult after this moment to be in Israel, Palestine. And the first immediate thoughts that I had during the first 2 weeks, should I leave or not? Should I come back to Germany or not? To be honest, I had my luggage prepared. I used to leave my apartment in Ramallah with my 2 passports all the time. I had the feeling that something big is going to happen, much more than what happened in October 7th, and I have to be ready to leave. Of course, on the other side, I wasn't sure morally, ethically, if I will do it because of my family. My family lives in Israel, and they cannot leave. Yeah, exactly. I have a German Jewish rabbi, second father, and I'm glad that I have him in my life. Okay, to go back to the context. So the first immediate feelings were actually fear, deep fear, where we are going from this point. And a kind of anxiety and depression. But on the other side, I was already involved since 2.5 years in a political movement and organization, and we didn't allow ourselves not to do anything because we knew we don't have the luxury also not to do anything. But to this point, we will come back later on. And maybe the second personal thing that I still feel until now, that this war is against all the Palestinian people and not only Hamas and the people in Gaza. I feel it. I feel it in my life. I didn't dare to write anything, any piece, academic or political, and publish it since October 7th, because I am Palestinian and I am a citizen of the state of Israel, and there is a kind of silencing, very clear silencing of the whole Palestinian citizens in the state of Israel. And the consequences would be very, very harsh and difficult if anybody of us say anything, a little critique about the Israeli politics at this time. So it's really also personal. I think we cannot understand what happened October 7th without going back to October 6th and before that. And I will be focusing only my very brief analysis on the last 2 decades, maybe, especially after the failure of the Oslo Accords between the Israelis and the Palestinians and the break of the Second Intifada, the Palestinian Second Intifada, and later on. And to be more specific, it's a continuous Israeli policies against the Palestinian people. It is the continuous of the military occupation in the West Bank and the military control on Gaza Strip since 2005. It is actually accumulation of the whole Israeli policies against the Palestinian people. I cannot ignore this context when you speak about October 7th, and we cannot ignore the politics of the Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu since 2009, where he started actually with his Likud party and the several coalitions that we had until the last one, which is the most radical extremist coalition. First of all, ignoring, I mean that the politics of the Israeli official government since 2009, ignoring the Palestinian question, ignoring that there is a problem there, and they don't want and they are not interested to do anything in resolving this problem of the occupation. There is a continuous negation of the right of the Palestinian people for the most basic collective right of self-determination in their own state, like the Israeli Jewish people, and continuous blindness of the continuous control of some million people in the West Bank and Gaza Strip, and denying from them the most basic rights of the freedom of movement and having their own state and living in dignity and basic human rights. This is the context from the Israeli side. On the other side, I cannot ignore also the Palestinian situation. There is a lack of political leadership. There is, I think you all know about the split between Hamas and the Fatah, the most important and significant political parties in Palestine, where Hamas has the control on Gaza Strip, and the other party, the Fatah, and the Palestinian Authority have the control in the West Bank, without, for the last 2 decades at least, without having a clear political and national narrative toward the Palestinian people. So in this whole context, and there was also a decline of the support of the people in Gaza Strip and also in the West Bank of Hamas and also the Palestinian Authority because of the corruption, because of the lack of orientation, political and national orientation of all Palestinian political parties during the last 2 decades. And if you look at the several international as well as Palestinian polls prior to October 7th, you will see that the majority of the people in Gaza Strip, where Hamas controls, were actually declining. I do remember one of these polls where actually the most of the polls speak about not more than 20-25% of the people of Gaza who supported Hamas prior to October 7th, and less than that in the West Bank. So there is also an interest internally, Avner, for Hamas. It's not only the very radical politics of the Israeli government, which is very important. It is the significant part, where the Palestinian people, with this new Israeli government, very nationalist, extremist government, who not only continued ignoring the right of the Palestinian people for freedom and self-determination, they even tried to make further escalations in their narrative and practices toward the Palestinian people through the annexation and the expansion of the settlements and the normalization with the Arab countries, especially the Gulf countries, while emphasizing a continuous ignorance of the Palestinian people. So all of these factors, but also internal political interests are actually the main context of October 7th. Thank you.
Thank you, Rula, for offering this broad perspective and showing that there are stakes on both sides. Himmat.
Thank you, Avner, for inviting me. And thank you for everyone for coming. I'll be very brief because I thought I'm here to comment on a project so I'll be more active in the second round. But in the meanwhile, and since I have the opportunity, I want maybe to pick on 2 points. One of Avner, and to stress the humanism that despite everything that your family went through, you are stick to the togetherness, and I will get to this in the second part, but this is very important. But also I want to stress what you, Rula, said, that it is a war, continuous war on all the Palestinians. And it's escalating right now, but the situation in the West Bank and for the Palestinians in Israel is not better, actually, the opposite. But since we are here in Berlin and Germany, and since I have been living here for a couple of years, and I was here on the 7th of October, I want to share with you briefly that the feeling of what Rula explored about being a Palestinian in Israel, with the oppression, with the crackdown on the right of expression, of demonstration. This was my feeling in Berlin as a Palestinian in the last 3 months. So, and this is, I think, important to bring also this to a German audience, and maybe to mention the moral responsibility of the state of Germany to the Palestinians, as our history intertwined in the German history as well, but also the political responsibility of the German state when a big group of Palestinians lives in Germany for many decades. Some of them are citizens, but others are living here for decades. So not being able to go to demonstrate and imagine, to ask, stop the war, which was the slogan of the left for many years, has been banned in Germany. Avner mentioned from the river to the sea, and I'm glad that no one called the police, because some of us were arrested when they just raised a banner with "From the river to the sea, equality for everyone." And then the police came. So, and to mention from to, and the demonstrations are not allowed and banned. So being, again, a second citizen, I'm not a citizen of Germany, but still I have rights, right? And this feeling of suppression and oppression and not being able to express your feeling or to feel sad or to mourn or to gather, to assemble. So it was forbidden. It's really a reflection. It's echoed the feeling as a second or third citizen class from Israel. My body reacted very normally because I know the how and what to do, right? When I go out with a kufiya and I see the police, and the reaction, I know because I'm used for this reaction from back home. And maybe one point in regards to this specific situation in Germany, also the superiority and the one narrative that should dominate is also a good reminder of what is the situation back in Israel, even before this right-wing government, that should be an alarm for everyone, for me, but I think for everyone also everywhere. So this is for now. So I thought to bring also the third part of the triangle into the room, and we can continue this maybe in the second round. And thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Himmat, for adding this important perspective for us now here and reminding us that what is happening there in many ways reflects on other parts of the world, Germany and Berlin included. Please, Hagai.
Good evening. I would like to start by thanking Elad and the Katholische Akademie for enabling this very significant gathering. And I would like to say a few words about my father, well, mainly about my father, and I would like to try to say them in German. Surprise, surprise. Ich bin in einem Mapam-Kibbutz aufgewachsen.
I was born and grew up in a kibbutz, a Pam kibbutz, the Young Guardian in English. That was a socialist movement which, amongst other things, was fighting for a binational state. My father, a survivor of Dachau, a Jew from Lithuania, was kind of a farmer in Israel, but he was also a teacher. He taught students from neighboring Palestinian villages. This was a common project of Mpam and the then heads of those villages. Both sides at the time believed to be able to create a common community and society in the spirit of socialism and the brotherhood of peoples, despite the traumas of the past of 1948, which was at the time not that long ago. This was a war where my father was fighting when his kibbutz was attacked by the Egyptian army. They said that at this project there was also an indoctrination component involved because Zionism was to be taught to these young people. But this Mpam Zionism focused on peaceful coexistence, focused on a space where both sides could keep and live their national identities. Maybe this presentation and depiction was a bit naive or contradictory in the sense that these Mpam people were thinking of a space where the Israeli Jewish nationalism would eventually dominate. But for my father, that was not a contradiction. People like him assumed that nationalism was not necessarily separatist or excluding others. Zionism, for them, had many different meanings. But in this context, it didn't mean much more than the right and the possibility to live in peace. And this was to apply to all parts of society. To quote Prophet Micha, everybody under their vine and under their fig tree will sit. A modest eschatology, in other words. But everything went down the drain. At the beginning of the 1970s, certain national religious groups became more and more popular and more crucial in the Israeli society. And the real Israel, in contrast to the imaginary Israel, became more and more ethno-nationalistic. You could argue against this and say that such Mpam Zionism, with or without socialism, was a minority ideology, kind of a counter-ideologies, and as such would have to be preserved. Multiple rivalizing Zionisms could exist in parallel, they said. But over time it became more and more clear that that the dominant ethno-religious violent Zionism would be like an animal sucking out all other Zionisms and basically making them impossible. Now, the painful finding that this type of Zionism was no longer possible was unavoidable to face. In general, it was possible, but it failed with reality, and it thus became an unfulfilled utopia. However, people like my dad did not have any inhibitions when it came to utopias, and they insisted on, nevertheless, implementing these utopias. But Zionist history took a different direction. Groups like Brit Shalom and PAM in this history were always minority groups with only little influence. Those who still believed and stick to this kind of Zionism found less and less of a common language with the dominating majority of the Israeli society. So this not really positive finding drove people like myself out of Israel because there we were already in exile. But then the 7th of October happened, and we then made the maybe not so surprising finding how strong the trunk was, what they used to call people's identity. Somebody who had distanced himself already from this, found himself right in the middle of this nationhood. It's not even an ideology, it is just an instinct for survival. In times of danger, we drift into the city walls and we close the gates behind us. Today, the city and the walls are our WhatsApp groups, but that doesn't really change the situation. I really felt it in my body as a physical feeling, this urgent need to return to my tribe, to listen to Hebrew news, to talk to other Israelis. And when I then was listening to the Hebrew news, it shocked me even more. I found it ugly, this language of patriotism, this language of one-dimensionality. However, I had to keep listening to it. I could not resist this chaotic language completely. Does this mean that despite all criticism, we now subject ourselves to the dominating Israeli nationalism? No, that definitely does not mean that. But it means that we need the power, or that the power of Zionism has to be understood better, so that we can handle it better and live with it better. That is, the contradiction of living in this Zionism and at the same time having to stay outside. All this also means that especially in this complex, contradictory and mostly desperate situation in which we are, the quasi-naive perspective of my father and his Palestinian co-visionary would maybe be our own place of escape or resort. So we have to cling ourselves to utopias. We have to summon up the courage to be naive or to imagine to be naive. What we need now is visionaries, people with imagination, people who dare to use their imagination and put it into practice. People like the ones that are sitting here on the panel. They are our last hope. Or what Gandalf says in The Lord of Rings, a fool's hope. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Hagai, for reminding us that one of the powers of Zionism was indeed the dream, the dare to dream, the fantasy. If you want it, it can happen, and how in the meantime fantasy and utopia became almost a bad word. And this is a very good passage that you gave us to the second round, where we try to fantasize, try to imagine how it can be. So I will invite now Avner and Rula. You can decide which one of you want to start to present your imagination, imagination that has become, in the meantime, nonetheless reality. There are real initiatives, new organizations that are taking place. Rula? Okay, Rula. Thank you.
Start. Es geht nicht naiv zu sein. Oh, sorry. I will switch to English.
Arabic, please.
Arabic? Okay. I am not naive. And I think we don't have any possibility to be naive at this time. And the initiative that I represent here, A Land for All, 2 states, 1 homeland, which is also linked to my academic and research themes that I'm busy with during the last couple of years. So this intersection brought me actually to be to go a little bit out of the academic field and to fully politically engage. So I will start by telling you a little bit about the initiative and about the principles that we believe in when we speak about living together of Israeli Jews and Palestinians in Israel, Palestine, from the Jordan to the sea. It is actually started as initiative of Palestinian and Jewish Israelis 12 years ago, where these people, political activists, journalists, and scholars started to meet, and mainly in Palestine, and started to discuss, because of noticing that for long years the issue of the Palestinian right for self-determination and the Israeli occupation were missed by the majority of the political parties in Israel. People get used to be occupier and that they live near occupied people. They didn't hear anything about the Palestinian people. There were walls. There is no interaction between, no daily interaction between the Palestinians in the West Bank and Gaza with the Israelis. So it was easy to ignore the Palestinian people, and for the mainstream Jewish Israelis not to speak about the occupation and not to know anything about what's going on behind these walls. So people who cares started to think about and the failure of the classic two-state solution and the separation actually motivated these people to engage and to start thinking about other solutions. 2 years ago, this initiative has been more established and started to work as a real organization, political organization and political movement. And at that point, I joined the movement, and much more recently, we transformed the whole organizational structure to be joint cross-border organization. It means Palestinian-Israeli organization, which includes people from both nations, from the whole territory, from the Jordan to the sea, and from the diaspora. So it's, I think it's the only really shared cross-border Palestinian-Israeli organization. We are much interested about the principles that we should follow when we speak about any solution. And personally, I don't like to speak about solutions. I really don't care if we are speaking about 1 state or 10 states for the Palestinian and Israeli people. I really, at the end of the day, I'm interested on the principles that should actually be there for both people when we speak about the day after and about the future. Before I continue and I speak about the future, I think it's important to say maybe 2 words about now, the current situation. We unfortunately don't have time to expand about what's happening now, 3.5 months among the Israelis, and what's happening for the Palestinian people, especially in Gaza Strip. At this moment, the majority of the Palestinians in Gaza Strip are displaced and are facing daily killing and bombing. And the majority of them live under real hunger. And I think it's a human, ethical, moral failure of all of us. And the second thing, I think the Palestinian people are not going to forgive anyone who were silent or who was silent while they are facing this killing and bombing and non-human conditions. And they are not going to forgive and to forget that there is no real call for ceasefire. Until now, more than 100 days, they are facing the death every day. And the last point, before we speak about the future and about any political solution, we need to have and to ensure getting to the day after. We cannot speak about the future without having a day after. And I really afraid that this day after will take another more time to come. And I'm very concerned about how is the Israeli society going to be, as well as the Palestinian society is going to be in terms of trauma, attitudes, feelings, and political and economic situation when we come to the day after. In order to have the day after, we need to work in order to have the day after, and it means to stop the war now. This is one part. So when we speak about the future, there are some principles that important for us in our initiative to emphasize. We emphasize, first of all, the right of self-determination for both people, the Jewish Israelis and the Palestinian people. Second, we acknowledge the very sentiment linkage between the people and the land. In other words, both people claim this place, this land, to be their homeland. And it is important to acknowledge that. And therefore, to build any future solution on sharing the land and not dividing the land between the people, and not separating the land, because it's difficult also to separate. We are interlinked in this place in terms of living, in terms of the mixed geography of living, in terms of the economy, in terms of social connections, family connections, and because we think partition and separation between the people in this way, after having a kind of common living on this land, it's also racist. The third point, that we need to ensure equality for all. And regarding the slogan, Himmat, from the Jordan to the sea, we want equality for all people from the Jordan to the sea, dignity for all people, and individual and collective rights, equal, including self-determination for both people, Israelis and Palestinians, from the Jordan to the sea. And the slogan that, or the associations that the majority of the people here in Germany think about when they hear this slogan, from the Jordan to the sea, that it means to destroy the state of Israel, or to ignore the right of the Israeli people, or to want them to go out. It's not realistic, actually, for the Palestinians and for the Israelis there on the ground. And of course, the fourth principle that we speak about is also justice. Justice for all the people. In terms of the practicality of our political vision, we speak about, because of all of these principles, and because we are attached to the political and national interests and attitudes of both people, we continue emphasizing the right of self-determination in the so-called modern state for both people. And that's why we support, first of all, 2 states for both people, 2 democratic sovereign states, but with a confederation or a confederative political system, because we believe we cannot separate, actually, issues like borders, like natural resources, like economy, and that's why it's important to speak about a kind of separations in terms of respecting the most basic, fundamental collective rights of both people in terms of 2 states, but also to build shared institutions, shared political, legal, economic, etc. institutions between the two states. And the last point is that we don't speak about our political vision in terms of it is the end solution. There is no end solution. It's actually a phase where we can transform from this situation of Jewish supremacy from the river to the sea, and and occupation, and preventing one side from having the most basic rights, to another form of equality, of sharing the land and sharing the resources, living in dignity and people later on can decide, I don't know, maybe to open the borders and to live in one binational entity or political legal construction. This is a very, very short introduction of the political vision, but we can expand about it in terms of also the very controversial issues, the settlements, the right of return of the Palestinian people, and other things in our discussion later on.
Rula, thank you. Could you just say one word about what kind of activities you organize or you carry out?
Okay. We work now since October 7th, mainly in three levels of work. First of all, public engagement on both national sides, including with politicians and intellectuals and leaders, but also with the public. And public engagement actually abroad, like here and in the state and in other countries. The second level is policy and research. And here we started to work with the international community and the whole diplomatic groups and representatives in Israel and Palestine, as well as the European Union and the American administration, about two kinds of policy. Short-term policy for the day after and the transition period, which might last, I don't know, couple of years, maybe 2, 3, until 5 years. And the second one is to start thinking about policy of translating our political vision with the political stakeholders in the world who are also very much involved now in thinking about the day after for the long term, how to really implement our political vision of two states and a confederation. The third one is actually to enhance our partnership inside the organization, because we moved much recently to a cross-border partnership of Israelis and Palestinians, and believe me, it's not easy. But you know what, Elad? Our first joint board meeting after doing this organizational change to be more equal and shared was on October 10th. And we keep working together, and we are expanding among the Palestinians and the Israelis. And I think it's a good indication that people want to hear something new, and people need not only hope, but also clarity and a political vision for themselves and for their people.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Rula. Avner, please.
The vision of one land for all, and also the very meticulous program of how this confederation would look like is wonderful. I think so. It's really well constructed, really well thought of. It's wonderful. It has only 3 disadvantages. One, it's too small, too weak, and that's why this kind of evening is very important. So more people will support it. More people will support a confederation, an Israeli-Palestinian confederation. That's wonderful, very, very needed. One. The second is that I think that there's not enough work on dialogue. And I mean dialogue between the people. And the third is that you're not running to parliament. You're not running to Knesset. And talking about the second and the third is what I wanna present now. About dialogue, I can say that as Elad was saying earlier, I'm part of FAB, Friendship Across Border. It's an initiative that it came up from Germany, where Germans and Palestinians and Israelis are meeting together to speak, to share the narratives, to try to get to understanding between each other. There's quite a few people here who are involved, and I'm very happy that they came to support. And but it's mutual support. So this is something that is happening for the last 15 years, and hopefully we'll do much more meetings, seminars, and so on. About the third one, why Land Forum is not running for parliament? I think it's good that it's not running for parliament, because we need an academic work and thinking about it without going too much into politics. And that's why we constructed our party. It's a very new party and very small party. It's called All Its Citizens, Kol Ezrachea, Kul Muatania, which is actually, when you call a party Kol Ezrachea, all its citizens, according to the Israeli law, you cannot run to parliament, because from the 80s, if you want to run to parliament, you have to declare that you are voting for a Jewish state. And if you're saying that you are against a Jewish state, you're for a state of all its citizens, then officially you're not you're not able to run to parliament. We're not completely sure how we're going to tackle this very big block, but we won't be the first party who has had this problem. But we are the first party to be fully Jewish Arab or Arab Jewish party with complete equality. In every forum and everything that we do, and of course with the people who will be parliament members, it will always be one Jewish, one Arab, one Jewish, one Arab, and also one woman, one man. And I can go on, one straight, one. But no, seriously. We're trying all we can to have a really equal party who is bringing new ideas to the politics. We are facing now 50 years of Israeli left, who mostly is a Zionist left, and this Zionist left, following what Hagai was saying earlier about different ways of Zionism, was built on separation. It was a Zionism built on saying we are going to construct a big wall, they're going to live over there, we're going to live over here. And very, very unfortunately, Hamas very brutally, very unhumanly brought us to this place where we can all realize that this fence is not a real solution, that this fence is not something, a way out of the conflict. And the reality is that both nations live together, both nations will continue to live together. It's completely unrealistic, as Rula said, that one of them would leave. It's completely unrealistic. It's also completely unrealistic that in the next 10 years or 5 years, everybody will be equal citizens, and Palestinian nationality would not exist, and Zionism would not exist. That's not real. The real life is something that also a Land for All is saying, together and separately. We know that there is separate aspects of life between the river and the sea, and we know that there are shared aspects, and these aspects need to be developed. And that's what we do in the party. That's what you're doing in this organization, and hopefully, and that's what I think this evening is about, in a way.
Thank you very much, Avner, for presenting your initiative, the new party that hopefully will be able to actually run. At that point, I will turn to Himmat and invite you to present your response.
Okay. Thank you so much, Rula, Avner, for really sharing these inspiring initiatives with us. Like you said, Avner, to Rula, there are some disadvantages, and one of the disadvantages that that you don't combine together, because some aspects that you brought are adding value, I think, to the initiative that Rula. But before going to some challenging question, maybe, I want to stress that what I find very, very inspiring, especially these days, in these bloody days, is that the acknowledgement that Palestinians are not only human, unlike what the Israeli official sometimes says, but also have a political collective entity acknowledged, and they have rights as a collective, as a Palestinian, and as an equal actor. And I think this is very important, because in recent years this was put aside. The other thing that I want also to stress from what you said, Rula, because when I read about your initiative, I was thinking, where are the rest of the Palestinians? So I'm happy that you opened it to the other parts among the fragmentation of the geographic fragmentation, because Palestinians are united in many ways, by the way. Also in a struggle in May 21, they were united, but geographically they are fragmented. And I will be very glad to hear about the challenges that you face, because it's also very important to acknowledge that, because also here we are all holding one citizenship. Some of you holds more than one, but at least shared one citizenship, as in Israeli citizenship. And to impose from this point of view on the rest of the Palestinians is a bit, to say the least, problematic. So this is important that the initiative is opened. But the principles that you both shared with us, I think, meets the political and the individual aspiration of all Palestinians, right? So this, I think, very positive and important point. However, and maybe here also this will speak to what you presented, and I was touched to hear about the story of your father. But my impression is that the whole conversation here between the three of us, maybe Avner's, the all citizens is less, is that as if this started in '67. As if it's the occupation of '67, as if there is no problem with Zionism as a concept of separation, segregation. Jewish majority could have not been possible without expelling the Palestinians. So this is also an important factor that should be put on the table, not only for the future, but also our perception. How do we read the reality? There is no way any ethnic nationalism achieve majority without expelling the other. There is no factual, right? So it's also a very important question that is sometimes either embraced with this, that some of the Zionists wish to live together with the Palestinians, or ignored. So I think I wanted to bring it back to the conversation because it's a very important conversation, and I'm glad that I'm part of it. And I think there is a lot of points that we can build on, but also to make it fruitful and to make it just, I think also hard points should be also discussed. And we not, as Palestinian, as a scholar and activist, we do not mix between Jewish and Zionism as the mainstream here in Germany. We know they are not the same. So I just want to make this clear. So the Zionism as a political activist, right, as a political entity, right? So I also wanted to bring this to our conversation. And I think one more point, I had more point that I missed now. 2 more points. Again, I'm saying these are very, very, very important and inspiring and good initiatives. However, power relations also a very power factor in putting the facts. So, and we know decades of superiority of one group over the other. How are you going to address this in your initiative? And this is something that cannot be, regardless. The settlers in the West Bank is very good example of power relations. They are also with weapons. They are with advantages, economic and so on. But not only this. Also within the Palestinians, citizens of Israel, they are disadvantaged in relation to the Israeli Jews in the same state. The other point that I can understood from your initiative, as maybe it's to repeat myself, saying that, and especially it's relevant, very relevant, Rula, to your initiative, because ethnic states are not democratic by definition. So to have 2 different states, 2 ethno-nationalist states, I find it a bit unrealistic to be democratic at the same time. So how are you going? And we have an example from Israel right now, right? So how are you going to address this? And my last point might sound very out of place. Nationalism by itself is a very patriarchal form, chauvinist format. And this is interesting how, and it's globally, it's not, we are not the only chauvinist, patriarchal nationalists as Palestinian and Israeli, but how are you going to address this? And maybe it's time, if we are dreaming, why not to dream big? And to have maybe non-national, to think of beyond nationalism. And by the way, the region, if we are talking about inspiration from the past, the region had experience. Okay, it's format of empire, the Ottoman Empire, and so on, but the people lived in non-national configuration in some way or another. So might be that we can find build on that and to go and to connect our dreams with the region rather than import them from other region. And this might be more genuine maybe, and more related to the everyday experience and to sensory experience of the people who are living, dreaming, eating, singing their everyday life in the very local context. So I'm not sure if this point is clear, but this is something maybe to dream of, but also challenge how we think about these things. And thank you so much.
Thank you, Himmat. What I propose to do now, if you agree, is first ask Hagai if he wants to have some short comments. So just a second, Hagai, and then Avner and Rula, with your permission, I maybe will pick a few questions from the audience, and then I will let you, give you the possibility to answer whatever you want. Is it okay?
So I really very short comments. One is that there's a gap here between those very inspiring and beautiful initiatives and the bleak view that we have of the present and of the future of the Israeli society and Palestinian as well, maybe, because the question is really, what are the assessments about the future, concerning the future? Because when I see the polls now, Meretz hardly goes beyond the minimum, and the Labour Party doesn't go beyond the minimum. So what would be with such initiatives like yours? That's a tough one. And the other comment that I would have is that you criticize justly the nationalistic project, and you say it's patriarch and chauvinistic, and you also say that there's no fulfillment of nationalism without achieving a majority. So I would ask this same question about the way the Palestinians view their own nationality today. Would they be able to imagine a sort of a Palestinian nationalism without being a majority? I ask the world, and I ask you as well. Yeah.
I'm not representative of Palestinian.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Right. So I will tell you a secret. I was actually a part of this little party of Avner's at the beginning. And we had disagreements about this, and I was going your way, in a sense, because I thought we should neutralize this nationalistic perspective, and we should be able to think of ourselves as non-nationalists. And Avner disagreed because he thought it's not realistic right now in the present atmosphere, and I think he was right in this sense. Or
only because I'm a nationalist.
Or because you're a national. Yeah, I used to be one as well. Yeah.
But that's why I'm not running to the Knesset. Neither I do politics.
Thank you, Himmat and Hagai, for raising the important question of the national character of the project, and the question of whether a collective identity and existence can be thought otherwise. I now open the discussion for 2 or 3 questions from the audience, and we'll then let Avner and Rula respond to whatever you want to respond. I see one finger there. Here, Marlies, next to you.
Hello, good evening. 2 short questions. One, you discuss as if the Palestinian side and the Israeli side is not connected to the world, like the interference of the British Empire, of the, today you might say, American Empire, all the interests, the geopolitical interests. This is my first question, if you have to say something about that. The second question is, justice was raised, and one important question is water. Who gets the water? Or how can you produce more fresh water, for example, from desalination, that everybody gets enough water for the future? So big infrastructure projects, economical development as a base for peace.
Thank you very much for the 2 questions. I saw other fingers right next to you, and then... Okay, so we'll take...
Thank you very much for the presentations. Nobody talked about religion, and I was wondering, since the conflict is colored so strongly on both sides by religious concerns, maybe you can say some words about how this plays into your vision and understanding of the situation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and thank you to all of you. This was an extremely impressive panel. One frustration I have, however, is I feel we have not talked enough about Hamas. And what I mean by that is we've heard about criticism of Israeli settlers and Israeli government, and I share those criticisms. But we have not really talked about the responsibilities of Hamas and the role Hamas has played in this war. I mean, this is a war conducted by 2 parties. And both parties, it seems to me, both Hamas and Israeli government are conducting the war on the back of the Palestinians. But, you know, you have Jewish settlers, we have talked about them. But we also had, and this was, you know, my experience of October 7 here in Berlin was, we had parts of Berlin where people were celebrating in the streets the massacres. This was the face of Hamas here in Berlin, and Hamas is part of Palestinians. And I think I would like to have Palestinians address that issue, just as I would like to see Israel address its settlers. Thank you.
Thank you. And last question here.
I would like to say thank you also, and thank you very much for your work, that you are so engaged. And I would like to ask you, what can we do? If you could tell this, I would be very happy. And I don't know, unfortunately, the organization Germany, Palestinians and Jews.
FAB, Friendship Across Borders.
Friendship Across Borders.
Yeah.
Okay, I will find it out. And then I wanted to say, long time ago, I was here, and there were Dan Baon and Sami Adwan. And they were telling about her project and writing the books with her students. And now the book is quite a long time, has been published. And I've studied it with my pupils, and it's very good. It's the idea you all are talking about. But it's it's very hard, but I think there is no other way to understand each other. To understand each other, the story and the light, I don't know the word in English, suffering. The suffering, and so you can come together. Thank you very much.
Thank you, thank you. At this point, thank you for all the questions and the responses, and I will let Avner and Rula have the last word of the evening and respond to whatever question or you would like.
Okay. Well, maybe they're all big questions, but maybe I'll start with Hans, with your question about Hamas. Definitely, there's two sides in this war, and these two sides are doing the same thing. The two sides are massacring one another, and the two sides are taking the wall and breaking it. The Hamas did it, and the IDF is doing it, and the question, and it's really very weird that the idea of the left that there should be a wall and they're here and we are there, as I said earlier, is something that now the right, on both sides, is showing us that it's impossible. That really the fence is not a way to get out of the conflict. That the fence is a way to make it much harder. Of course, I as a resident of Sderot, I cannot say, okay, let's break down the wall, and when Hamas wants to come and massacre me and my children, they will do that. I cannot say that. But unfortunately, the IDF, my army, when it was supposed to defend me against them, they didn't do that. They were in a complete collapse of the army, trying to defend the fence. So maybe a new way of thinking about the fence is needed, and a new way of thinking about living together and about the ability to see that there is no real other option. The option of separation, of full separation, is not serious. It's not serious enough, and this is not something that we are talking about only to the Israeli right. We're saying that to Hamas also, because Hamas was demonstrating their belief that I cannot live in between the river and the sea. That's what they did, very brutally. And at the same time, what the IDF is doing with much, much bigger force is saying that the people of Gaza cannot live between the sea and the river. So there are two sides, but two sides here are doing the same thing. That's one thing. About the international perspective, I was reading quite a few articles were saying that really this war is between Iran and the United States, it's between Russia and the United States, it's between China and the United States. There's so many different ideas how the real thing about this war is. And these are interesting essays. You should all read them. They're really interesting. But on the other hand, they keep us stuck. They keep us stuck because for the people inside, they don't show any new perspective of how things would look like, how real life would be after we will, in some way, take this war to a better phase. They don't do that. So yes, there is an international perspective. Yes, this war is run by the United States in many ways. Israel could not do what it did without the support of the US. And that should be clearly said, and especially in a European context, it should be said. But on the other hand, the real question, I think, is what happens to the people inside, the people between the river and the sea. About what you can I I don't have a really good answer for that. Of course, support is really needed. And when you see how the United States is supporting war, then other voices should come and support different ideas. Supporting FAB is very maybe natural for Germans because it's a German association, and any support you can offer or is great. But also our inner initiatives need support from the outside, showing from European politics and politicians that would say this is the vision. The vision is not separation. The vision is common life, joint life, shared life between the sea and the river.
Thank you very much, Avner. And Rula, last comments.
Okay. Good. I will start with your comments, Hagai and Himmat. I think, unfortunately, the majority of the states, the modern states that we know, are national states. It's not the most popular and nice and good form, but it's actually the form that we know in the modern history and at the contemporary time. It's not about preferring this form or not. It's about where the people are, the Palestinians and the Israelis. And I think that the majority of the Israelis and the Palestinians are not where we are, in a kind of post-national or non-national mindset, interests, etc. I do claim that the majority of the Israelis and the Palestinians still emphasize, because of the nature of the conflict and because of the collective memory of the Jewish people and because of the Nakba of the Palestinian people, and not having the chance to fulfill really for the Palestinian people their right of self-determination during the last maybe more than 100 years, but especially after the fall of the British Empire in Palestine and the Israeli occupation in 48, absolutely 48. We are not speaking about it's. I thought it's not needed to speak about. So I think the majority of the people are not in a post-national mind of set. And as I said at the first part of this evening, if people later on develop their attitudes to be post-national, it will be wonderful. But I think we are not going to witness that in our life. This is one point. To go to another questions about the power relations and the asymmetry between the Israelis and the Palestinians, and between the two entities as political legal entities, the Palestinian Authority and the State of Israel. We are fully aware about these asymmetries, and we do have our vision how we can bridge this gap, first of all in terms of the asymmetry of the powers and the power dynamics, and the economic asymmetries, which was one of the problematic issues during Oslo, for example. And absolutely speaking about the asymmetries in terms of the privileges of the Jewish Israeli citizens compared to the Palestinians, if they are citizens in the State of Israel or non-citizens. but live under the control of the Israeli regime, who controls actually the whole space in Israel, Palestine, and who control also the people. Our political vision is based on equality without keeping any form or kind of privileges for any group of people based on their national belonging or ethnicity or etc. I will go to another question from Hans. Yes, I think the war is not only between Hamas and Israel and not between the Palestinians and Israel. From the beginning, we can see how global powers are involved in this war now, but not only. If we refer to the history of this conflict, and not only this conflict, about the evolution of the whole idea of Israel and Palestine and the transformation of especially because of the Germans and the British empires, the transformation of the Jewish question to be a Jewish question in Europe into the creation of the Palestinian question in the Middle East. It's because of these global powers, and we can speak another more 2 hours about how the shift and of these political powers influenced and keep influencing the situation between Israel and Palestine. So yes, it's too many actors are involved, and it's not only about the national interests and political interests of the Palestinians and the Israelis. I think I would like to refer to another question. I think you, Avner, you didn't answer it, about the religion. The water. Okay, religion and water. A lot of people tend or like to see the conflict as a religious one. It's not. It's a national political conflict to frame it in these words, which is actually not fair, but for our discussion. But there are 2 points about religion. On both sides, there are powers and players who misuse both religions, Judaism and Islam, in order to justify their political interests, and not only their religious interests. The second point in this regard, actually, that we cannot ignore that big percentage of the Palestinian people and the Israeli Jews are connected to this place, to this geography, because of the religion, because of their religious sentiments, and not only because of their belonging to this place, or because Zionism decided to occupy Palestine and to implement the right of self-determination of the Jewish people, especially in Palestine. There is also a kind of sentiments of both people to this place. The issue of water, what was the question? Sorry, I forget it. Well, I think natural resources, and especially water, it's a big problem in the Middle East. It's not only about Israel Palestine. And you know what? I hope we will be able to solve all of our big problems and be able and free to start dealing with producing clean water in our region, instead of dealing with war and killing and other negative issues. Thank you.
Amen. Amen. Avner Dinur, Rula Hardal, Himmat, Zoubi, Hagai, Dagan, thank you for this conversation and for open some perspective. Thank all of you for coming, for your attention and engagement. Please stay, there is a reception outside, stay a little longer to continue the conversation, and good evening.